Hello, Aspies, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Asperger Studios. I'm joined today with April Woodward, a female author on the spectrum. Welcome to the show, April.
Thanks for having me.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get going.
My name's April M Woodard. I am an author of speculative fiction. I'm on the fourth book of writing my series, the Aeon Chronicles. It's the last book, so it's been really hard to kind of pull everything together, but we're almost there, and we as in me, almost there, and I'm really excited to finish it. I'm almost 38. I have three kids, two boys that are on the spectrum,
Mm.
and a daughter that is neurotypical. And so, yeah, that's pretty much.
So, what is a typical day life? So, now you have two on the spectrum as well as yourself. I'm pretty sure a typical day is very hard to get your two kids along with yourself into that kind of a focus of the mindset of, okay, let's sit down and get our day planned out together.
It is. It's very difficult with the two that are on the spectrum. One is more like me with Asperger's. My middle child is a little further on the spectrum where he's very emotional. So it's very hard for him to. Um,
This is a
Alexis.
reminder.
Uh-oh.
Zoom meeting with Reed Miles for an autism podcast interview.
Alexa, stop. Sorry about that. I had to make
Not
sure
a
I was being
problem.
reminded. I'm sure you'll be able to chop that up.
Hmm.
So my middle child is very emotional, and he still has that childlike mentality, which I love about him. And I think I was the same too. So it took me a minute for myself to mature. I think I was in high school when everything finally clicked, and I was like, oh, this is how people behave. But so yeah, I have to plan everything out. I actually have a planner. But sometimes one of them will wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and that just puts a kink in the whole day. So I really have had to train myself ever since, especially my middle child was like 2 or 3, to train myself to use coping and calming mechanisms for myself first, and then for him. But I've figured out that if I'm calm, then he's calm. So it's just trying to work through the day a lot of the time, especially if things don't go their way or there's a change in what was going to happen that day. Because my middle child does not do well with change at all. That will
Mm.
destroy his whole entire day, which I totally understand. And I think me being on the spectrum has really helped me understand them because my parents are not. And so I was treated a little bit differently as far as like discipline, and there was no real understanding. And I think it really helps that I've kind of been in their shoes, so I know. And then my husband, I've been able to explain to him, well, we can't discipline him this way or that way because it's not like our daughter. We can discipline her certain ways. And by
Mm.
discipline, I just mean, taking certain things away. Like when he was little, he still has his special baby poo is what he calls him. I've never told him he can't have that stuffed animal. It's just that would be cruel. So certain things like that, he's almost 12, and you would think that a 12-year-old should part with their sleeping stuffed animal, but we've never done that to him. So certain things like that. But yeah, a typical day is it just depends on what's going on, honestly.
Okay. When you were in school yourself, when you were in like high school, what kind of things did you see or notice from yourself?
I noticed that I was lacking in the maturity department as far as what everybody else my age was doing. I didn't have any interest in boys until I was probably 16. Um, and thinking about doing anything with boys was way far from my mind, even once I did get a boyfriend when I was in my senior year. Um, and so I was definitely a late bloomer in those aspects mentally. And also I was still big into video games. I wasn't big to going to parties, not the kind of parties they were going to. I wasn't into drinking or doing those things. I was happy to sit at home a lot of the time and read my books or play my video games and just I don't know, be to myself, unless I was with my friends who were several years younger than me, and doing those things that I enjoyed doing with them. So yeah, I was definitely noticing that I should be interested in certain things, but I wasn't, and I had to learn to be okay with that when I got older, which was in my 20s.
Uh, yeah, I felt that same way too. Because when I was in high school, I had my own interests and my own focus and my own things. Even in college, when I went away for college for my master's, I get this invitation to come to a party at one of my friends' dorms, and my friends are like, "Why aren't you going?" And I'm like, "It's just not my thing. I don't drink. I don't like really, really loud noise."
Yeah.
And I was kind of glad I didn't go because it got broken up by campus security because they had kids in the hallways and everything. And I'm like, I want none of that. I was happy to be on my own, doing my own thing and not being bothered.
Yeah. And I never knew what to say to people either. It's like I didn't have the same things in common with them. It's like they would be talking about stuff that like I don't even know. And I'm not good on small talk either. They're like, "Oh, how's the weather?" I'm like, I I have no feeling about how I feel about the weather.
It must be hard for your husband to like kind of look through, if he's like looking through the window and seeing a whole different world looking at you and your two kids, where your other child is like him. So it must be this whole other world to him.
Well, he's actually got some Asperger traits as well.
Oh.
We have not gotten him diagnosed. I don't think he wants that label, which I don't blame him. Because I kind of, when I tell people I have Asperger's, I'm like, but I'm still me. I'm not the label. And there's people that are on the spectrum that are different, all types of people, because we're all unique and we have our own personalities, even though we have things in common. But he has some OCD. He has what we call anger management issues, where he's very passive, and then he just blows up, which my middle child is very much like. But it is still hard for him because he was brought up in a way that wasn't, he was brought up very military, which has been good for the boys. And then again, there's certain points where I'm like, it's a little tough. But he has adapted, especially with me when I say like about the lights. If we're in a dim room, he'll warn me now, when he used to just flip them on, and it felt like I was getting stabbed in the eye. So I had to explain to him, warn me before you flip on the light because it really hurts. But yeah, he doesn't like crowds. So we kind of get to stay in our own little world, staying at home, watching our TV shows or whatever. And we just really don't go out a whole lot. But there are certain times where we do go out with friends, but it's friends we've been friends with for a while. So it's easy for me to really socialize and be myself around them. But yeah, I guess it was hard for him at first with the children and then getting to know me. But once he started to understand my triggers and certain things, and there's just days that I can't get out of bed because I have sensory overload, it took him a minute to understand that. But once he did, he was a lot better about it.
Yeah. Speaking of, as a female on the spectrum, are there obstacles that you've faced growing up? Like people saying that you can't be on the spectrum, you're a female, or people just questioning the fact that you say you're on the spectrum but just don't believe it?
Yeah, well, because a lot of people say that I don't look autistic, and I'm like, does autism have like an actual look? I guess because they look at movies and things like that. But yeah, it's hard for people to, and like I said, I usually have to wear a mask a lot of the time with people I don't know and kind of be turned on in a character, so to speak. And that's really exhausting. But yeah, a lot of people definitely always are like, oh, I didn't know you were autistic, or I didn't know you were on the spectrum. And a lot of people don't really understand what it even means. But yeah, I think a lot of people believe that, which I have two boys on the spectrum, but I think they believe that most people with autism are male. But I think it's just because women are very good at, like I said, masking and,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of being agreeable. That's how I got through life a lot of the time, was just being a doormat and being agreeable, even when I didn't like something, because it was easier to let someone say, this is what we're going to do, instead of me getting very emotional about it and fighting my way through it, when I knew the end result would still be the same, which was I don't get to choose. Um, so yeah, it was a little, I think it was a little different for me, and especially seeing how the boys are dealing with it. My boys are having to deal with like male peer pressure. Like, one of my oldest is almost 13, and he's still into, certain things that kids his age are not. And I can kind of see where the peer pressure is there, like being a boy. But with the girls, I dealt my whole life with what was called mean girls. Um, and so I really didn't have a lot of friends growing up, because I was not displaying what the popular girls thought was cool. And I had my own little, like, fashion aesthetic that I liked, that just seemed kind of odd. Online, when you go on Instagram, though, it's acceptable, but out in the real world, in certain cliques, it wasn't back in the day. So
Interesting. Now, do you, as a female, what do you view the world differently on the spectrum than guys do, or do you see things differently?
I'm really not sure, because I think from researching about, like, the boys versus the girls, uh, I think I think we all kind of feel the same. Um, and like I said, I think everybody's on different levels of where they are in the spectrum. But I can definitely tell, my boys think about different things and deal with different things than I do. Girls can be a little more emotional, but I've noticed my boys can be just as emotional. So I'm not really sure as far as that goes. But girls, I've definitely seen where I was just labeled dramatic for getting over emotional about certain things, or obsessive about things. But my boys kind of display the same thing too, and I'm not sure though if that's because we're related or not. Might have something to do with it.
All right. Do you find any being an adult now? Do you find obstacles easier to get around with your autism, or do you find them harder?
I find it a lot easier now that I've recognized what triggers me. And so I can usually avoid things, and I've learned to really cope with, approaching certain situations. So if I know we're going to the mall, or somewhere that's going to be very loud, like an event, or I have to go somewhere that I know I'm not going to be comfortable with, I kind of have to, like, build myself up before I even step out the door. Like, sometimes it even takes me, like, really coaching myself to even get out of bed and get dressed and, like, actually go do it. Um, but I found it's a lot easier as an adult now, because now that I know that I'm autistic, I can recognize, oh, this was a trigger, or oh, that's why I was exhausted today, because of yesterday or something that I did previous. Um, when I was a kid, I couldn't figure out why. I felt like I was wrong. Like, everything I did was wrong, and there was something wrong with me, when really it was, I didn't know how to cope with what was going on around me. And so yeah, I really think that, the knowing part really helped. I think there's still adults though that are struggling with it very, very much so. I have a friend who's an adult about my age, and he still struggles with a lot of things. But like I said, I think it's different for everybody. And but yeah.
All right, do you have any other disabilities besides your autism that make working with life harder for you?
I do have a health disability. I have, shingles, so it's like
Mm,
the chicken pox that's dormant, and then it comes out, brought on by stress. So that does not help with having autism and then having shingles, because stress, if I'm fighting it or trying to hold it in, it'll come out through my shingles sometimes. So, but balancing both those out has really seemed to help. So I have that disorder and a immune issue. But that is pretty much it. I don't really have any other factors that seem to make my autism more stressful, other than having to take care of my boys and teach them how to survive in the real world.
Now, you're an author. Now, do you find it harder writing a book because of the fact that you're on the spectrum, or is it easier because that becomes your hyper focus?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned hyperfocus, because that's why it's like the best escape for me, because I can actually sit there for 5 or 6 hours straight and just be in that world. Now I can get overstimulated though, and overwhelmed by obsessing over the book for too long. So I have to make myself take breaks. But yeah, the hyper focus I found is like the biggest strength, and the fact that I can go into this imaginary world and very visually picture everything I see has really made it a lot easier to write. Now, my dyslexia can cause problems, but that's what I have an editor for, and she knows that I have dyslexia and that I write sentences completely backwards.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting, and noticing how I struggle with sometimes I have bad memory days, or cog fog, I call it, where I just can't focus at all. And so I know I have to either take my supplement that I missed, or I have to just not work on my books. So, but I think it's like a superpower almost. That's kind of what I call it with my writing, is I've got like the superpower of the hyper focus and my overactive imagination.
I
So
mean,
yeah, I found it a lot easier.
yeah, well, I mean, two of the biggest traits of ASD are hyper focus and creativity, and you seem to harness those into your books.
Yep.
And that's a huge bonus for you. I mean, especially for a writer, for someone who can just sit down, focus in on the story, actually visualize what's going on in the story. I mean, that takes a lot of brain power.
It does. Yeah. Some days I'm pretty tired afterwards, but it seems to be one of the best coping mechanisms I think I found, because as long as everyone leaves me alone and I can be absent from the outside world for a couple hours, it seems to help me like decompress, and I can put my characters through things that I may be experiencing, and then give them an alternative, like um, reason, how to sort through how they're feeling. So if I can't sort through something in the real world, I can put my character through it, and they can sort through it and get a resolution, and then I feel good about myself again, because I feel like I did that through the character.
So basically, that's pretty cool. Is the fact that you can actually put your what you're trying to struggle with into your book, and have your characters find that resolution, and then you can take that resolution and use it in your own life.
That's right. Yep.
That is so cool.
It's really therapeutic because you get to sort through what you don't realize that you're really feeling until you write it out, almost like journaling, but it's through a character, which makes it not so intense that you're saying yourself, but someone else is going through it, and you almost feel like you're being their mentor through the experience and try to help them with the problem. So then you realize, oh, this is my problem, and this is how I can kind of approach it.
Cool. I mean, how did you get your book done? I mean, what obstacles did you have knowing that you were autistic? I mean, were there things that kept popping up when you were trying to write, that your mind just went into a fog or something, or you get distracted? I mean, did you have obstacles?
I did. Time issues and interruptions. So when I want to sit down and I'm ready to really focus, and I know I have a scene that I really want to get down, if I'm interrupted, that is probably the biggest obstacle, because then I get cranky, and then I get scatterbrained, and if I forget a scene that I didn't get to write down, it just upsets me so badly, and then I have to learn to get over it. But and sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's mostly interruptions. I want to be that person that's in a cabin in the woods somewhere that just gets to write their book for a few months and then come back. But That's not how it is. I have kids that I have to homeschool, and real life as a mom and wife. One of the other obstacles was really like teaching myself how to write. I didn't go to college. I went to cosmetology school for college, but I didn't go to writing, English college stuff. So I had to really teach myself how to actually write novels. And so that was a little bit of an obstacle. But once I figured it out, because I love being self-taught, I had it and I was able to run with it. And I've self-taught myself basically everything. I don't think I learned anything in school or the couple months of college that I did go to, because I was going for a different career, but they make you take all the general classes before you even get to what you need. So that didn't last very long.
Yeah. Now, writing your book, I don't know if you have OCD or not, but did you find yourself sitting there writing and then thinking, "Oh, this doesn't work," and just correcting it and then going back and then keep correcting and going back, like little self-correcting yourself?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I've been working on not doing. I have a thing where I'm like, okay, this is just drafting, which means you just write everything out. You don't try to go back and fix it. And actually, a lot of writers deal with that, which is they write a sentence or a couple sentences or a paragraph, and then they'll go back to reread it, and then they're like, delete, delete, delete.
Mm.
So I am really bad about that. Uh, but a lot of the time I'll just sit there and just write everything out, not worry about if I'm misspelling anything or like what was the sentence, if it even went with what I wrote. And then when I go back and revise, that's when the OCD kicks in really bad. And sometimes I'll sit there for a good 30 minutes on just one paragraph. And I like things to sound the way I want them to sound. So the OCD kicks in there. I think the OCD kicks in the worst though is when I have uneven chapters. I don't
Mm-hmm.
really necessarily like seeing 52 or 33. Like I want a certain number for it to end on, and usually in a number with a zero, because all of them have double digits. So like right now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get this to end on a chapter 50, even when I probably have like two other chapters. So sometimes I have to get over myself on that. I'm also real OCD about my cover, which drives my poor cover artist insane. But I'm like, no, I don't like this. Oh, this needs to be fixed. So, but I'm very visual. So I see little things that a reader probably won't even notice,
Yeah.
but it bothers me.
I mean, I feel that same way. My mom has pushed me to write a book about myself and all the stuff I've gone through. I mean, I've traveled through Europe, I've gone to school, all on my own, and I'll sit down, start writing, and I'll just sit there. No, that doesn't make sense, and I'll just script. And
Yeah.
I took a writing course after I got back from school, and even the writing teacher says your first draft should be a mess.
Yeah.
That's And she's like, there's a great quote, and I think she said that when your book is going to be great is when your first draft is a total mess. When it's not a mess, it's not going to be good. When it's a mess, it's going to be great. But I
Because you're
can't
just
even get
jumping all your thoughts.
past.
You
I
can't
can't
get
even
past
get.
that.
No, I just sit there and autocorrect myself all the time, and it drives me nuts.
That would be a really cool story, though, for you to tell that you did everything on your own.
Yeah.
Because I always worry that about my middle child, and I'm always worried that is he ever going to be on his own? I mean, he's not severely autistic, but I'm thinking, how is he going to cope with the outside world? And uh, so,
If you ever want him to talk with somebody, I mean, someone who can really like share what life is like, or you want to sit down with him and with him and you and me, and I can sit there and tell him about what I went through in school, I'll be more than happy to.
that would be great. Yeah, we should definitely get together because
Yeah, I mean,
he's only heard from one other person about our age.
yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity to go, and my mom and I just looked at my mother, and I'm like, I got nothing here at the moment. I don't have work. All I have is my family, and my mom's like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Take it. I went and I had my first actual meltdown in the airport
Oh man, I can imagine.
because I was fine, fine, fine until we got up to like the desk, the ticket desk, and the guy's like, only one parent's allowed to go with you to the gate.
Oh no.
And I'm sitting there and I'm already overwhelmed because I have all this other stuff going on. My mind's
Mhm.
thinking about what's going to happen to me at school, what's going on, how am I going to do, and I have all these other noises, and I'm just worried about the plane and everything else. And I just broke down in tears. And my father, who's always been this person who's been a realist, is like, I'm sitting, my mom's in the airport, like little magazine shop, getting a magazine for my dad and some gum. And I'm sitting there crying, and I'm trying to explain to this guy, I am on the spectrum. Please, can we do anything? Can you talk to your manager? He's like, I'm sorry. No, no, no. I'm the manager. It's just strict laws. There's nothing I can do. And finally, my mom said, let's go. And my dad says, you'll go with your mother. I'll sit here on the other side of the glass wall. Thank God the glass wall was right by the gate, so he can see me waiting in line with my mom. And what happened was, I'm sitting there crying, talking on the phone with my mom. My dad's sitting there telling me, you're embarrassing yourself. And he's not registering what's going on.
Right.
And then what happened was, my mom puts there's a guard there, and she puts a newspaper down and some gum for him and puts it around. My dad goes to bend down and pick it up, and he falls on his butt. So she's laughing. I'm still crying,
Right.
thinking, not even thinking about what happened. And then the minute he gets up and things start to settle. The the flight call gets in. I stand in line, and all of a sudden, it's just like all the tears stop.
Yeah. Because you have to focus on being in line and getting on the plane.
Yeah. And the minute I get on the plane and get in my seat, get my stuff put away, it's like everything else stops.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was my first major meltdown. Now, back to you. How severe would you consider your ASD on the spectrum of like 1 to 10? Where are you?
I want to say I'm like, I want to say I'm like a, I don't know, 1 to 10. 10 being not.
10 being like this high functioning, super high functioning with no problems whatsoever, almost like what I am at this point.
Okay.
And then down to 1 where you got severe sensory issues and everything.
I would say I'm probably around like a 9.
All right.
Because now I'm a 9. I probably would have been a 7 about 5 years ago, because I was still really struggling with my anger. I mean, I would just blow up at like any little thing. And then my mom was like, oh, you're so hormonal, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, there's like a lot of stuff raging inside me, and I don't know the reason for it. And of course, I come from a divorced family, and there was a lot of stuff with that in general that I know a lot of other kids on the spectrum deal with, that just intensifies everything else they have to put up with as far as emotional and, the overthinking. And so, yeah, now I still get anxiety attacks and panic attacks out of nowhere, a lot of the time in my sleep, and it wakes me up. But now I can actually go back to sleep, and it's not so much of an issue. I still don't do well with a lot of commotion going on. But I've learned to just coach myself through it if I'm in a situation I don't like. But yeah, I think I'm doing a whole lot better, and it's helping me kind of show my boys of how they can kind of cope and deal with it, which a lot of it stinks, but a lot of it is really just biting the bullet and just getting through the moment, and then collapsing when you get home. Because a lot of time you're in airport situations that you just have to get through it. But yeah, distraction really helps. That's why I put earphones in my ear a lot of the time and listen to music or listen to a podcast when I go to the grocery store because I can't deal with all the sounds or what
Yeah.
everybody's doing. So,
I've noticed a lot of people like that nowadays. You walk into a grocery store now and you see a lot of kids, even adults with headphones on. And now I'm going to start thinking, because of you, I'm going to start thinking, gee, that person on the spectrum, are they trying to bleed out the world?
yeah. And now it's like not such a big deal. I mean, you couldn't really walk around with headphones back in the day. I mean, I'm sure people did, but now with technology and the way everything is, like I can talk to people online. I don't have to face interact with them. It seems like there's a lot more people on the internet, so you seem more acceptable because there's people all over the place now that you get to interact with, like your tribe kind of thing. And it's just easier. Like I'm glad I'm living in this time of day and age because I'm definitely more tech savvy, and I feel like I do better dealing with situations and people online. Like if I was to have this interview with you face to face, I would be like picking my nails to the quick.
Mm.
It's just a reaction where if I don't know someone very well, it just makes me automatically super nervous. And it also depends on how the person makes me feel. um I'm more comfortable with you because you already kind of understand where I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
from, but someone else, it might make me a little more uptight. So
Yeah.
but, but yeah,
I
I
mean,
think I'm really pretty.
that's why I like to at least start before I even hit the record button. I like to warm up the guests and let them feel comfortable, let them get a feel for me feel for them. This way, it just becomes a more cohesive kind of chat instead of just question. It's more just two people chatting.
Yep.
Now, with you and your kids on the spectrum, do you see anxieties in them as well?
Oh, a lot. A whole lot. My oldest, who, like I said, is oh no, he is 13. He's 13 now, so I've really seen him mature in just the past year. And so he used to cry all the time, like about everything, which I understood because I used to cry about everything at his age too. But at school, they're just like, why is he crying so much? Why does he cry about every little thing? And then he was getting called crybaby, and I was like, so
Oh,
we worked on that. When I homeschooled him for about a year, and then I sent him, or 2 years, and then I sent him back. And they said, wow, there's a huge difference. What happened? I was like, well, I think he matured, one, and two, we've been really working on, like, what do we do when something's very upsetting and we feel like we're about to explode or cry, because we can't control what's going on or we're really upset about it. Um, but I think for my middle child, like, there's just no controlling the emotions. He's either going to blow up and scream about something, or he's going to break down and cry. But it is better. We've been working on that. But it's, it, I've noticed it's very difficult. And at first it was very difficult for me because then I would get very upset and very, like, having a hard time controlling my emotions, especially when I didn't have a clue that we were all three autistic. Um, so yeah, I mean, the emotional thing has been, I think, the biggest part, and AKA like problem. Because you can't act like that in the real world. When it's good to be passionate and it's good to be very, like, driven by things, but it has to be cultivated and then used for, like, my writing. Like, I can get very emotional about my writing, and I can put all the emotions in my characters, but I can't act like that or act out those things in the real world. So
yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I myself get emotional and stupid little things like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen Hamilton before the lockdown happened, but at the
Oh, I
very
haven't
end
seen
of the,
him.
you haven't seen it?
No.
But at the end of the show, I mean, when he dies, I get so emotional with that song, and even stupid little things on TV, things that make you sad. I just break into tears, and I'm just like, why am I always carrying my emotions on my sleeve?
Yeah. No, my son's like that. They even, both the boys will leave the room if they find out there's a cringing part coming up to a movie, like where the character's embarrassed, they will leave the room because they don't want to feel that embarrassment. I've noticed that autistic people have like a lot of empathy, and like people think that they're not empathetic, but really it's just too much for us to handle, and we feel
Hmm.
so much. I even feel stuff from people that I don't even talk to just walking by me. It's a very strange thing, to just overly sensitive, and I don't think people realize that, when you're overly sensitive to things, that, I mean, it's painful a lot of the time, in general. So I totally understand what you mean about like crying. I'm trying to think of a movie. Les Mis, I have seen that, and I actually own the movie, so I
Like,
cry every single time at the end of that.
I mean, that final song where do you remember the song when they're coming down the street in the funeral?
Yeah.
The what is it? The people will sing. I
Yep.
love that song, and I can
Does
listen
it
to
give you
that
chill
song.
bumps? I always
Huh?
get chill bumps.
I do, because it's the kind of song that gives you chills.
Yeah.
I've never seen the full movie or the play, but I love that song. It's just got some kind of feel to it that just makes you want to like root for the good guy.
Yeah. Do you feel like music really helps you like therapeutically, or even like gets you like ready to do stuff?
Sometimes, yeah, if I need to like be motivated, I'll listen to a really good song or something, or a song that I listen to over and over and over.
Oh,
Yeah,
you listen to stuff on repeat too?
I do. I mean, if there's something I really like, I'll listen
Yeah,
to it continuously.
me too. I
And
will I
then,
will wear out a song.
yeah, I've been told that it is a trait of autism. Is I actually talked with a mother who's got a son who's 8 years old, and he will continuously either repeat something he's heard that he's liked or
Hmm.
listen to something over and over and over because he's liked it. And I never realized that was a trait of autism.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either until I got older. But my mom and my stepdad were like, if you can quote all these Disney movies, then surely you can remember your math facts. And I'm like, nope. Like they didn't get it because the movies were making me feel something. The numbers were not making me feel anything. And like I have to have like that. I've noticed about me an emotional connection to certain things, or something, seeing something has to make me feel something for me to be interested in it, or I just have to be interested in it. Like, what is it? What was I interested in? I was into like film stuff as a kid. Like I wanted to be a director. I loved watching film. I loved learning how films were made. And that was my thing. And so they said, oh, you should be a photographer. I was like, well, I don't really like people, and I don't like taking pictures of people. I'll take some abstract like pictures of stuff or whatever, but I really, yeah, I was not going to be a photographer. And that's why I didn't do cosmetology school, or I did cosmetology school, but that's why I didn't pursue after cosmetology school the career, because I don't do small talk. I just really don't even like gossip. And that's a lot of what being a cosmetologist is you talk about gossipy stuff. And I didn't like having the hair on me. The hair shavings would get everywhere and they'd get on me, and it drove me absolutely mad. So I didn't do that.
Now, looking at your kids, do you see any hyper focuses in them, like things that they really love passionately that they can like super focus on?
Yeah, Gabriel, my middle child, who's going to be 12, he he used to hyper focus with his Legos, Duplos, which I know is like a very autistic thing. Um, but so he would hyper focus with that, but he's really gotten to this like engineering stage where he wants to invent things. So he'll sit there with cardboard and markers and cut out cardboard and make stuff, and he'll sit there for a couple hours and be completely content with doing that. And he does not like to be interrupted, just like I don't like to be interrupted. And do not touch his stuff while he's doing it, because then there's a really big problem. Or destroy it, or mess up a little teeny thing on it when he's done with it. it'll be the end of the world. And he was like that with his Legos. If someone would come and like mess with his creation after he did it, he would just, it was it. That was over. And the rest of the day would be ruined. With my oldest, my 13-year-old, he's really into like Goosebumps books and horror stuff and video games, of course. But so he loves like Five Nights at Freddy's is really popular right now. But he's big into like lore, like learning about like monster lore. And so he'll sit there for hours and read books about monster lore, and that's his thing.
And what about you? Besides your writing, do you have another super focus?
Besides my writing, I still love video games. I just don't have time to really play them, and reading. And so those are like two escapes. But some days I'll just get in my planner, and because it makes me feel better that I'm planning stuff out, even though I probably don't like a lot of the time follow through with the stuff I put in my planner. But just sitting there with my planner and writing out everything and putting stickers in my planner and stuff like that, I could sit there for hours and do that.
No, that's
I don't know what it is.
No, that's a really good segue, because you like planning things, and I'm pretty sure your kids do too, right? Like planning out stuff.
I've been told I'm a control freak. I'm not big on spontaneity.
Well, there is a really good app that will be sponsoring me next year called Timo. Tiimo, and they are a visual planner, a visual calendar for those of us who are on the spectrum and have ADHD. It's a subscription base, and it's very affordable. The cheapest price per month is like $1, but you plan it out on your computer, and then you sync it with your phone, and if you have a smartwatch, and it's all visual. And you can create routines and everything. So you can even import your own pictures, and it's great.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be so great, because I use Google Calendar, but I also have like an actual like planner, because I like using my markers and stuff, because I like the colors. But yeah, that would be really, really cool. I'm sure that would help. We haven't gotten the boys' phones yet, but they probably need something that's just like a constant reminder. Like I thought about getting them like some kind of watch or something. That was my biggest issue too, was like a time knowing when certain times were up. What is that called? Time management.
Time management, yes.
I'm the worst with time management. I'm better now, but I have to, like you heard my alarms, I have to constantly set timers and reminders and write stuff down in different places, and I use sticky notes. But yeah, that app would be amazing.
Or if you get stuck in your hyper focus, you lose track of time, and then you totally forget to eat, you forget to drink.
Yeah.
You're so stuck in it, you need a reminder to say, hey, drink, eat, you're gonna starve.
Yeah. Oh, that is so true. I mean, I thought it was just like a writer thing, because there's a lot of other writers that they'll sit there for hours and they'll be immersed in their story. But and then maybe a lot of those writers are autistic too, and they just don't know it. But yeah, I've noticed if I don't remind myself to eat or drink, I will skip meals. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, the app has been really good for me. I mean, I used to always forget to brush my teeth in the morning. And ever since I've used this app, I've always remembered to brush my teeth, take a shower, get dressed, take my medicine. And it's been wonders for me.
Yeah, it's I guess we need those reminders. I'm wondering if it's because we have so many other things on our mind all the time. Like even when I first wake up, there is no shutting my brain off. It's just already automatically processing everything. It's booting up, but it boots up at like extreme speeds.
Speaking of sleep, how are you with sleep? Do you have issues?
I still do. I'm a lot better now, but when I was a kid, it was awful. I'd have very, very vivid dreams almost all the time. And I would wake up with panic attacks quite often. So I didn't sleep good as a kid, but as I got older, and I was also medicated a lot of my life. I have no problem with people getting help with medication for depression or anxiety, but I myself do not do well with any kind of medication whatsoever. That's why I take my supplements. And I feel like I can kind of gauge a little better with that. But I think that kind of messed with me too with my sleep, that the medication, the antidepressants that I was on. But no, now I sleep fairly well. Sometimes dreams will wake me up, but like I said, and anxiety attacks or panic attacks, but I've noticed I can go back to sleep a lot easier. My boys, Lucian, my oldest, used to have night terrors, and he would wake up screaming. I'm glad he grew out of that, but I think that was part of his autism. But he would sleepwalk.
Oh, yeah.
So that was scary when we had to deal with that, because I'd be sleeping and I'd hear a scream, "Mom, Mom!" Gabriel never experienced that. Gabriel sleeps great unless he's had a bad dream, but he sleeps like a log, and he'll go right to sleep. I have a very hard time falling asleep. So that's my only problem with sleeping is it takes me, unless I'm exhausted, it takes me forever to fall asleep because my brain won't shut off. So unless I take like some valerian root or something to help me kind of get a little sleepy, it's really hard.
Well, I can say one of the things I have problems sleeping like crazy. I mean, this has been going since I was been young. But what seems to help me is CBD.
Yeah, a lot of people have some really good luck with that. I think my mom takes it for her because she has anxiety. She also has lupus, but yeah, we actually were taking some. It just makes me too drowsy. I mean, it is good. I just don't like the way it makes me feel. But people
Sort of
have
like
had,
melatonin.
yeah, I don't like melatonin either. Like, I don't like that drowsy feeling.
No, I don't. My mom, both my mother and I will not take melatonin because it stays with you when you wake up and you are like out of it still.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't. Now Gabriel will take melatonin. He doesn't seem to have a problem with it if he's having a really, really hard time going to sleep. So actually, no, he does have a hard time going to sleep, but once he falls asleep, he's great. But yeah, CBD, I've heard it does a lot for a lot of people on the spectrum. Even with like speech therapy and things of that nature. I actually had Gabriel taking some of it, and it seemed to calm him down quite a bit, but it was just really expensive, and I don't know if in our state it's been legalized for medical to buy it medically. I know it's just really expensive. I don't know if insurance allows it yet.
CBD?
Yeah, CBD. So I don't know if my state allows it as like a medical.
You're in Georgia, right?
I am. So maybe they passed it already. I'm not sure.
See, CBD isn't like marijuana.
No, I know.
So that's
It's
weird.
a different strain.
That's just weird that certain states see it differently. I mean, considering there's no THC in it, it's legal. I thought it'd be legal everywhere.
Yeah, well, it's legal everywhere, but I mean, like insurance companies covering it. Yeah, because it's very expensive. So
yeah,
it's legal.
I spend about $53 every 6 weeks for 2 bottles of the tincture.
Yeah, the tincture. Yeah.
And then I buy for my mother and I buy a roll-on, and for me I buy the balm. And between about the balm and the tincture, it plus the fact I'm on Adderall, so the cool down when I hit that cool down effect at night, when I take it, it hits me like a brick. Otherwise, if I try to take one or the other, it's almost working opposite. It's keeping me up all night.
Yeah. Does the Adderall seem to help you? Because that was something they didn't do for me. They just put me on antidepressants. And I'm almost wondering if it would have helped.
Well, what's funny about me and medicine is my body works strangely with certain medicines. I mean, I originally was on Cylert back in the day when I was younger, and then they took me off as I got older because they had problems with liver.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tried to put me on Strattera, and it just made me feel out of it totally.
Yeah.
So I took myself off of that, and I've been off of it until recently when I started seeing a therapist, and he's like, and he specializes with people with autism because I actually went, I through Facebook I found this research going on statewide for autism. This new drug, this company that was putting out, it was supposed to help with communications, and I went on it, and this drug worked like a champ for me. All of a sudden, I felt my filter. I was starting to build a filter. I was thinking. I was more proactive. And then the company decided they weren't getting the numbers, and they just canceled the whole thing.
Oh no.
So the therapist that was part of the program, we became friendly with, and I said, I would like to talk to you and see what we can do. So we sat down and talked over the phone, and he's like, I want to put you on Adderall to help with your concentration. Well, he put me on 5 milligrams, and just the whole 5 milligrams made me feel kind of spacey.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, Reed, I want you to take half of it, and half of it seems to work.
You just need that just a little tiny bit to help you go.
To get over that hump, and that lasts
Yeah.
about 6 hours.
Yeah.
I mean,
and see, that's what I was wondering too. If they had not put me on such like high doses of stuff like back in the day, I probably would have been over the hump too.
yeah, but the funny thing was, when I first started on the medicine, I had the stomach flu.
Oh.
And I kept thinking, and we didn't know this at the time until I just couldn't hold anything down. And my mom's like, maybe that's why your pulse is high, your heart's racing fast, you're feeling totally out of it. Maybe those are all signs, and it wasn't the medicine, but I still felt totally out of it when I was taking it. So I just kept emailing back and forth. My doctor's like, Reed, I want you to take half. Stop thinking about the side effects.
Yeah. That's another thing. It's like we overthink, like, what is it going to
Yes.
do? Yeah. That's why with my supplements, like I even have to be careful about the dosage of my supplements. Like especially the valerian root and stuff like that, because sometimes it makes me feel worse than I would have if I hadn't take it. But I've really noticed, like especially since I have an immune disorder, that I have to take like my lysine and my sunflower oil and but what do I take? I take something for a mood booster, and I can't even remember what it's got in it that helps so much, but it just takes off that irritable edge where I just wake up that way sometimes. Like I'm just irritable. Coffee helps too. That is a drug.
But anyways, when you look at your kid, how do you and your kids, I mean, with being on the spectrum, how are you guys handling the whole lockdown and COVID and everything, being secluded and all this? Are you handling it well, or are you struggling with it?
So I was really happy at first because I was like, now I don't have to go anywhere and do anything. My middle son was very upset because here's a big change. Now, I was very stressed out when the food started getting shortaged. That was my own, because I was like, now I don't know what to fix for dinner. Now, like my whole schedule is messed up as far as like, when do I go to the store? Now I have to go to more than one store, and I don't know where anything is. And then, so it was very stressful at times in the very beginning because there was a huge change. And like I said, my middle son did not handle it well. And then the kids had to come home from school. So then I had all the kids with me, and I'm used to only having the one, which is my middle child. And him and I get along really, really well because we both like our quiet time, and we both like to be left alone to do what we want to do. So we just kind of do our own thing a lot of the time, and the house is nice and quiet. But yeah, it was not easy at first. And we all don't like the masks. I feel like I can't breathe. And then again, I feel like it's a security blanket, but it's very hard to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And I wear glasses a lot of times, so my glasses always get fogged up. But it was a difficult adjustment. I think now it's a little bit easier now because here in Georgia, it's, we can go and do things and still have to wear a mask a lot of places, but it's not as strict as it was.
All right. Now back to you. What are your biggest struggles as a female being on the spectrum? I mean, do you see your struggles more or less than those who are male as opposed to female?
I'm not exactly sure. Trying to think about that. Like I said, I'm really good at masking in certain situations. So I'm really great at getting into character. I was told, oh, you could be an actress, but I was like, yeah, I'd end up being a method actor because I get too much into the part. But I'm not exactly sure because I think me and my boys and even my husband, like, I've noticed that we deal with similar things, but I don't know if like the testosterone does something different to males. And maybe like I think maybe that's why maybe Gabriel, my middle child, lashes out more. But then again, when I was younger, I lashed out too. Like if I like it would just automatically like something struck me and triggered me, I'd go
Mhm.
ballistic. So um I don't know. I haven't really seen any more struggles for females than there are for males. Um, and I think it's really hard to even get that data for females because we're so good at hiding behind our our mask or our character. So we just always have that mask on. And we never really show how we truly feel all the time because there's a lot of peer pressure, especially with women, to be a certain way and to act a certain way.
All right. Do you find it hard socializing? Because I
I
know a
do.
lot.
It depends on where I'm at and who I'm talking to, but um, certain times, like I said, I really have to build myself up. And a lot of people I don't think notice. You've probably already noticed that I don't look eye to eye a lot of the time because I'm thinking about what I want to say, even while I'm saying it. And so certain social situations are okay because some people don't pick me apart and notice the little things that I do. But I've noticed myself in several situations where I just say the wrong thing or my mind gets jumbled and I say something I didn't mean to say, or I don't even know. And sometimes I hear things that people say that they didn't really say, and I get words jumbled. So it can be very difficult for me to socialize, especially if I've already been overstimulated, because then I'm just like, it's even hard for me to talk and I'll start talking strange, um, fumbling over my words and things like that. But yeah, if I'm with my friends that I've known for a while, I could sit there and, even have a drink with them and just chill and laugh and whatever. But then I have a certain time where when I'm done and I don't want to be messed with. So, like if we're at a party or something, when I'm ready to go home, I'm ready to go home. I'm done with the music. I'm done with everybody talking around me.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I have my points. And so a lot of people are like, oh, why doesn't April want to come out? Or, oh, why does April want to leave the party early? It's just I've had enough. So that's been really hard socially, is that a lot of friends don't understand. Sometimes there's just days where I can't go out because I was overstimulated from the previous day, or maybe something happened that I'm just not dealing with well, or I didn't sleep well, or I just might be ready to go home.
Yeah.
I don't think I had any sleepovers as a kid.
Yeah, I've had that issue too where I'll be my sister-in-law's got a huge family and every year we go to her cousins for her mother's for Thanksgiving, her cousins for Easter, and it's always a lot of people and I've found myself after a while just trying to find that quiet spot,
Hmm.
whether it's going downstairs into their basement where there's just a few people talking and just sitting down on the couch and just letting my mind quiet down, or to the point where I'm just looking to my mother and saying, I'm tired, can we go?
Yeah.
And my mom will take that cue and say, okay, yeah, I think it's time now. And we'll pick up and go. Now, speaking of saying the wrong thing. Have you found ways to work around having no filter?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, well, I mean, it depends. Like I said, it really depends on the situation. A lot of the time, I have to really watch people engage, how to approach people. Because I'm very good at being a chameleon where I'm very adaptable. So, say someone's a little more talkative or a little more like fun loving or charismatic, I don't know, then I might be able to be a little more of myself with them because I'm very fun a lot of the time. If I'm with someone that's more serious and is sparse with words, I get very uncomfortable because I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But with the filter and not having one, I've actually always been really good at not really saying how I feel. Now, when I was younger, it was probably an issue. But I think the older I got, I really learned how you just don't say what you're thinking out loud, which my middle child always says what he's thinking out loud. But I don't think
Mm.
I've been like that. Maybe that's a female versus male thing. I don't
Yeah.
know. And my husband's very blunt too. I mean, he'll just tell me, he's like, you look terrible today. Or I don't like what you're wearing because it makes you look frumpy or something. I don't know. Like and if he doesn't like somebody, and my middle child's the same way, he'll tell him right away that like I have nothing to say to you, or he'll walk away from a conversation if he doesn't like somebody. Um, he doesn't. They don't socialize with people they don't like. So, which me, I'm more like, well, I don't like the situation I'm in. I don't really care for this person, but I don't want to cause confrontation. So that might. I don't know if that's a male versus female thing or not.
No, but I mean, I know with me, I'm very confrontational. I mean,
Are you okay?
my one of my friends will tell you, I'll get in your. I used to volunteer at the Field Museum here in Chicago, and I got pulled over. I got pulled to the side one day by my supervisor, and he's like, "Some of the volunteers are coming to me saying that you're standing too close to them." And I go, "Why didn't they just tell me?" And she's like, "Nobody likes confrontation." And I'm thinking in my head, really? They don't like confrontation. How is that confrontation? It's called politeness. I'm not confronting them. I'm not going to sit there and snap at them, but still, tell me.
Yeah.
But I'm very confrontational. If I feel so strongly about something, I will literally, and it's come out in Facebook a lot, especially with what's going on with the politics and the pros and the cons and everything. I'll literally rip someone to pieces, and I don't care what the consequences are. And I can tell you, I have been Facebook jailed at least 7 different times
Well,
because
that's
of the
because you're
fact.
very passionate about what you're talking about, though.
Yeah,
I've noticed that, like, when I'm passionate about certain stuff, like, that's what sets me off. Like, if I feel strongly, you're going to know how I feel. Um, but in certain situations, I'm not like that. Both my boys are very,
passionate.
you would say, confrontational.
I mean,
But yes, passionate.
even in family situations, my mouth has gotten me in trouble. I
Hmm.
have said something to somebody, and it gets back to my parents, and then they get back to me, and they scream and yell, and then I go into my shell, and I just don't say a word while they're yelling at me, and I feel terrible.
Hmm. That's what happens here at the house too, is it'll go back and forth, and then somebody shuts down and just can't anymore, and it's usually me or the boys. um like if me and my husband, we don't really argue, we have disagreements, but if I'm very passionate about something, especially when it has to do with the kids, like I will stand my ground, and he stands his ground too though. So it's like someone has to fold. So I've been learning a lot of the time I have to be the one to fold, and I've become the peacemaker because I'm always trying to calm everything down between the three boys. And my daughter, bless her heart, she's been like the caregiver to everybody because mommy has bad days, and then poor Gabriel, our middle child, has bad days, and then Lucian will have a bad day, my oldest. And then sometimes daddy comes home in a really bad mood because of work. So she's been like the little peacemaker. I'm like, I always wonder, I'm like, what's it like for someone that's neurotypical that has to deal with this kind of family? I don't know. She seems fine with it. She seems very happy. And she just thrives in school. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could have been just thriving like she is. Like, she has friends. She does all her schoolwork with no problem. She just, it's easy, you know? It seems easy
Yeah.
for her. And it seems like when people like complain about their kids, oh, you have phone call now too. Do you need to get that?
No.
Okay. It seems like to me when parents are like complaining and I'm like, but your kids are not on the spectrum. I'm like, oh my goodness, the laziness of a lot of parents. It just really drives me crazy because I'm like, I have to sit here like every single day, like there's usually a meltdown or usually something that happens. And so there's always like some kind of turmoil. And I'm like, it must be nice, like to be getting on your kids for, you know, leaving their shoes in the living room, or I don't even know, silly stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's so stressful that your kids are making a mess.
Have you thought about, like, do your kids and you have like what you call quiet time? Like you come back from like a busy time and you're just overstimulated and you're like, you go right to your place of quietness and you're like, don't bother me for like 10 to 15 minutes. I need to calm down.
Yeah, they've figured that out about me. I'm usually, like I said, though, I do the headphone thing. So I've had to start doing that. So it doesn't appear like I'm the mommy that likes to be left alone a lot of the time. So I've had to figure out ways of where it seems like I'm still there, but I'm not, which is hard. But yeah, we never really did the whole we need quiet time. But we did, well, I guess we did. I guess we called it nap time. So we had nap time when they were so little because I needed quiet time and they needed their nap time. So even if they didn't take a nap though, everybody would have to be absolutely quiet. And all my kids are very close in age. So it was easier, I think, because everybody had to take a nap. So even I took a nap at times. But no, I wish we still had quiet time. No, I've really just had to figure out ways to like I guess in a hidden way, because I don't want my kids to feel like I'm ignoring them when I really am not trying to ignore them. I just need time to myself to regroup. But I found that there's other parents that struggle with their autism or depression, even where they're like they just need that time to themselves. But I don't want my kids to feel alienated from me because of that, because we have a very strong bond. We're very, very close. And I think even with, especially with me and the boys being autistic and the fact that I understand them, like has brought us very close. But even my daughter, like we're all very close. So I think I would feel guilty if they thought I was ignoring them, you know, even though adults do need their own time. But me and my husband always have our time together alone at night when they're watching their bedtime movie is what we call it, where they get to watch a movie before their time to go to sleep. So, yeah, I think I went off on a tangent there. I'm not sure exactly what the question was now. Quiet time. Yeah, we don't do quiet time anymore. It's a good idea though. Maybe I should implement that. We are big about schedules.
Yeah.
We definitely like our schedules, which our
But
schedules
anyway,
sometimes get messed up.
second to last question. Do you and your kids, because now that your kids have ASD, consider your autism a blessing or a curse?
I don't know what my middle child Gabriel would say. I think he really would want to be like everybody else, but I think that's just because we haven't really found what Gabriel excels at. So I think once we figure out like career wise or what he would really like to do, I think he would, because if he could use his autism kind of like I'm able to use mine, I think he would think it was the coolest thing ever. But right now, I think it's very upsetting to him because he gets upset about stuff he can't control. He doesn't do well with making friends, and he just feels different. So I think he would probably say it feels like a curse. My oldest would probably say he's indifferent either way. He doesn't really care because he doesn't even really think about his ASD very much. And me, I think it is a blessing and a curse. I'm going to say both, just because I would love to have all the things that I feel like are gifts, like my overactive imagination and being able to hyper focus, and even the empathy, even though it can be very painful sometimes. But with the anxiety attacks and just the cog fog a lot of the days, and getting overwhelmed by too much going on is definitely a curse, because then I can't move forward and do things that I have to do. I'm also terrified of heights. I don't know if that was something that happened when I was younger that was happened trauma wise or what, but it's kind of like that. I can't go and do things like get on big slides with the kids because of my my fear of heights. It just takes a lot of fun out, I'll just say, having ASD. But there are a lot of things that I think are definitely gifts and that I'm proud of, because I can do some things that other people can't do because they're not autistic.
Yeah, I mean, I know your sense of fear. I mean, like when I was traveling, I went, where was I? Oh, I was in Greece and I was in Athens and I went up the Acropolis.
Oh, neat.
And as I got to the top, I paid my money and I went to where all the remains were. All of a sudden, as you hit this little plateau, you look out over to the city, and all of a sudden, I felt my knees buckle. I'm like, I'm that high up, because
Yeah.
you don't realize you're that high up because you're walking up this like little zigzag streets with like those little restaurants and stuff on the side, and you realize this until you get to that tiny little plateau before you go up to the top. And as I hit that plateau, I look out and I see all these buildings, and I realized, holy crap, I'm this high
I'm
up.
really high.
My knees started shaking. I'm like, okay, you're up here. You got to keep going. I get up to the top. I pay my money and I go, and I'm looking around. All of a sudden, I see a guy slip and fall.
Oh my
And,
gosh, no.
and I'm thinking, this is marble floor. This is all
Uh-huh.
marble here. And I'm thinking, I'm by myself. If I slip, who's going to come to rescue me? I'm not with a group.
Yeah.
So I literally walk as much as I can around to get as much as I can see, turn around, head back down. I mean, even things like um, we have family in Colorado, and my uncle wanted to take me hiking with him. We're 5,000 feet up in the mountain, and he's like, "Oh, this is beautiful view. Come look." And I'm sitting there hugging the mountain. I'm like, "No, thank you.
That's okay.
I don't
I'm
want to
good
look.
here.
I'm scared." So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel your fear of heights. It drives me nuts. I mean, I can fly in a plane with no problem, but
Me
you put
too.
me on a mountain
You put
where
me
there.
somewhere that doesn't have parameters. Well, even sometimes when there's a fence or parameters, like even at the mall, if I'm on that second floor up top, I can't look over the edge. I can look this way. There's something there, but I can't look over it. There's like a certain point where my body just starts freaking out, and it's like, oh no. Even if I have my eyes closed, like my body knows we're
Mhm.
not safe. This is not good. Um, I can't even watch like certain movies, like was it Skyscraper with The Rock? I'm like, oh gosh, when he looks down, I'm like, no, 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 I can't do it. It's awful. But yeah, Gabriel, my middle child, has a ton of fears though. It seems like that's where the overthinking I think takes over, is like,
Oh
but
yeah.
this could happen, and what if this happens, and what if this, and then what if that happens because this happened, and it's like a snowball effect with him. And so we've been working on that. I'm like, we just got to get that initial thought where it's like, we're not going to let that go and like just take over and snowball. We need to just like, okay, yeah, that one thing could happen, but what if it didn't happen? So I've been trying to kind of teach him how to be like, but it's like, what if, but so it's been really hard. I've had to teach myself that too. It's like a constant like mental thing with me is, especially when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I have to like mentally. So even somebody might be talking and I might be mentally like, okay, we're good. And that really stinks, but it's part of it, isn't it?
Yes, my parents or my mother, because my father passed away in 2017, could tell you I overthink constantly. And I used to, like for interviews, I used to think, what if they're worse? What if they don't want me? Or what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And I wind up walking into an interview and I just wind up rambling on and on. And my parents keep telling me, don't overshare.
Oh yeah. I used to be
I'm
the
like, I
worst about
can't
that.
do that.
I don't know. Like that's one of my filter issues is okay, that's not accept like I don't know. It's like I don't have a gauge of what's shareable and not. I'm better now, but when I was a kid, I'm like, what's wrong with what I said? Like my mom would get so mad at me because I'd say things about her.
Oh,
Oh, she used to get so mad. She's like, those are private things that we talk about at our house. I'm like, well, don't tell me about it if it's a secret. I don't know how not to share things. So
yeah.
that everybody should have known that about me when I was little. Like, don't tell April a secret because she doesn't know how to keep a secret. I really don't know. Don't tell me Christmas presents or anything. I don't know how to not be completely honest.
That I didn't know about autism was we tend to overshare. I was talking with a girl a long time back in one of the Facebook groups, and she's like, she can't hold a job because females tend to overshare more than the males do, and she tends to talk too much. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And I
Yeah,
tend to overshare. I mean, there were things my parents would sit down and literally tell me, now, you do not, this does not leave the house.
yeah,
And it's like my brother to this day is like, there aren't things I can't tell you because I know you're gonna wind up telling mom.
right. And it's not that we do it intentionally. Like it just
No,
comes out. It just happens.
it does come out. I mean, I've tended to overshare or even overthink things, and it's ruined interviews. I've gone. My mom's constantly told me only answer what's asked, and I'll walk into an interview and they'll just go wee,
Yep.
and I'll sit there go blah 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 blah, and I wonder why I never hear from them.
Yeah, I get really bad about rambling sometimes too, or a lot of the time actually. It just depends on what it is. And then I have what I call a spaghetti brain. So I'll be on something, then I go on something else. Because my thoughts just go everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really need to quiet my brain down at night because otherwise I'll constantly talk and go over things and over, and my mind will just be going and going and going and going, and it'll be like, why can't I sleep?
Yeah, that's what my mind does too. That's why a lot of the time, if I can think about a certain thing, like that's why I like writing my book because I can a lot of the time lay there and think about certain scenes that I want to work through. So that actually is very helpful because I'm working while I'm trying to sleep or go to sleep. But but I used to sit there and like over worry about the day, like the next day, like all the stuff I had to do, or all the things that I had to do the following week or whatever. Or so I found a way to like not overthink things I don't need to be overthinking, especially things I can't control. Um, but like I said, that's another reason that I really find writing therapeutic is because I can actually work through certain stuff that
Hmm.
I'm working on. But yeah,
Writing, yeah,
everything else is overthought.
writing is a great outlet.
It's so great. It's definitely not for everybody. Like my middle child doesn't like to write, and his writing, like my writing's really bad too. That's why I love that I write on a keyboard. And that was something I actually hyper focused on in school that I was really, really good at was typing. And I was super fast. There's only one other guy that was faster than me, and he was from China. And he was like, I think he was visiting from China. And I was like, how's this fair? He was fast.
There
So
are,
yeah, I
there are people
really,
that can text fast too. So
I can't really, my thumbs don't, and I don't do well with speech to text. So sometimes I get my words mixed up.
yep, that's a big thing with us too. I mean, there are so many traits with autism that you don't realize they're traits until you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then there's those disabilities that go along with it. But one of the things that aggravates me and my friends are there are those people that think, oh, you're autistic, you must be great with math. There aren't a lot of us aren't great with math.
I'm
Those are
horrible.
those, and so am I, and so is he. I mean, there are those who
Okay.
are true autistics who have no other disability that are like extraordinary with math. I fumbled my way through math and logic. I mean, how are you with understanding logic?
Depends on what it is. Like give me an example.
Do you understand computer programming?
Not programming. No. I can do like computer graphic stuff. If
How are
I'm really
you?
good at taking copies and recreating copies
Oh, that's good.
with my own details, like, and not an exact copy. But I'm really good at like making something very similar because I'm
No, I
visual.
mean, my biggest flaw was, and my parents can contest to this, is I have trouble with understanding distance, like how long it will actually take to get to some place.
Me too.
My
I
mom's
have
like,
no sense of direction over here either.
I can tell you a story where I've literally one time I was supposed to meet my friends downtown, and I know downtown like the back of my hand. It was a foggy day. I got turned so far around, I wound up walking instead of to the north to the south. And I'm like, oh my God, I walked totally the opposite direction.
Is it because you're good with like visual, like seeing like certain signs or buildings or yeah,
Visualization is one thing I'm good at, but when that visualization gets
uh,
clouded,
yeah,
I'm in a haze. I'm like,
me too.
okay, I'm lost.
Yeah.
I was in Italy and I was trying to memorize street signs, buildings, and all this. And then no fog or anything. I just turned around after I got done eating and I'm like, oh, great. I've walked all this distance. Now I can't figure out how to get back to my hotel. I literally
It
had
was
to
fun
walk
while you
into,
were going.
yeah, I literally had to walk into several different places until I wound up walking into a police station within the train station and find, and the one person that spoke English was busy. So I had to walk up to a guy behind the glass window who didn't speak English. I just showed him the map and I said, is this the road back to this hotel? And he's like, yes. And that's how I wound up back to my hotel.
Well, it's great that somebody helped you. Do you ever feel like panicked automatically when you are lost or like you don't know where you're at or how to get back to where you need? Yeah,
Yes.
that's like one of my biggest things, and that's one of the biggest things with my middle child is he just panics. Like it's an automatic like panic, and then you have to calm yourself down. But
Yes.
like he'll panic and then he'll just keep panicking, and then it gets worse. So
I
we've been working on how not to panic.
my well-being advisor taught me that she told me before I went, she's like, listen, try not to panic because if you panic, you're going to get yourself even more confused. Try to calm yourself down and think about the situation and what to do. And that's what I had to do because when I got lost, I'm like, I just started looking everywhere and my mind just started spinning. I'm like, and it started getting later and later and later. And I'm like, great, I'm going to be lost in the city in the middle of the night with no way to how to get back to my hotel. And that's when I had to realize I needed to calm down and start acting like an adult and ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm like, otherwise, I'm going to be stuck here. And it didn't help matter that I had my brother and my mother constantly telling me before I left, keep your passport on you. I'm like, there's no one that's gonna steal it. And then I had the hotels telling me the same thing. Make sure you keep your passport on you. We got pickpocketers out here.
That's what actually happened to me when I went to Czech Republic. My passport was nabbed out of my backpack.
I
Yeah, that was fun trying to get back to the States because our plane was supposed to leave the next morning. So
I
it was good that we had a friend over there. So it worked out. But yeah, that was very stressful.
yeah. And the last question, what are your thoughts about Sia and her movie?
About what, Sia?
Sia and that movie that she made about autism.
I didn't even know there was one
All right.
made.
She made a movie about autism and she didn't even use a person that was autistic in the main character. She used a friend who wasn't autistic, and there's a lot of controversy about it. And a lot of people on the scale are really upset.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of insensitive for her to do. I mean, and you would think that she would use, now I don't know if she did her research, but unless you're autistic, like I don't really think, like what did she had a point of why she was making it?
I don't remember what the movie was about, but it was but the girl was that she used turned out to be one of her best friends.
Oh, well, I mean, if I guess if they're making a movie and they want to save on actors or what, I'm sure there would be someone though that would like to play the part. I don't know. I don't really know how that works with the whole movie industry and that side of entertainment business. Um, but yeah, I don't have any feelings about that. Now, like, say if if we were represented badly, it would not make me happy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of movies and shows. I think I was just talking about that today. The show Hannibal on Netflix, the main character has Asperger's. So that was like one of the first things that was brought up. And I think there's a lot of movies and shows that use how our imagination works or whatever, or certain tics, I guess they call that we have. Um, it's like ways to make an interesting character a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe autistic people are fascinating. I'm not exactly sure why they're starting to do that a lot more. I would think they would do it to try to get more awareness of showing how we're all different, and then there are points and times where we all seem like just regular people without ASD. But yeah, I'm not sure why that's become a thing recently. But when people think autistics, they automatically do think Rain Man or
Yeah.
like other or Forrest Gump. But I don't know. I really
Yeah,
figured it
have
out.
you and your kids watched like Atypical or Love on the Spectrum?
What was that movie that we watched? I don't know if atypical. There was one we watched about a guy that's a little further on the spectrum. That he's really big into Disney movies, and he's grown, and it was kind of like a story along how he's getting on his own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which movie that was. That was a long time ago. I want to say that was like a year or two ago that I saw that. I haven't watched a whole lot of movies. There is one that The Accountant. I did watch that one, and that is with a guy who's an assassin, basically, and it's got who is that actor?
Matt Damon,
No, the other guy.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. I actually really liked that movie. It's like actually one of my favorite movies. And I thought they did really, really well. But then again, I mean, and they said they did the research for that one too. But they were kind of representing and showing that like we're not, people on the spectrum are not like useless or dumb or anything like that. It was showing that like this guy is like an assassin, awesome dude, and he's autistic. And then they had a girl in there that was a computer whiz, but she didn't speak, but she was on the spectrum as well, and she was like like his, I don't know, the person that calls and tells you where to go, an assassin who you need as, I don't know. So yeah, I thought that was a good movie, but I haven't really seen a lot of movies about like documentaries, I guess you could say, I've watched a lot of speakers like TED Talks and Tony Atwood, of course. I've watched a lot of his stuff. But other than that, I haven't really seen very many movies. So yeah, now I'm curious about Sia's movie, and I feel like I need to go watch it just to see, just to pick it apart.
Anyways, it was so much fun talking with you and
It was
getting to
fun
see
talking with you, Reed.
and getting the inside world of what it's like to be a female on the spectrum. And let's stay in touch with each other. If, like I said, if you and your son want to talk about college and stuff, I can give him the down low and what to do, what to expect.
That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, anyways, this is Reed Miles saying goodbye to everyone. And April, good talking with you.
Good talking with you. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.